So I guess our first question is, what does the American dream mean to you?
My parents have the typical American dream story, so I guess when I think of the American dream, I think of that because of their own experience. They are immigrants, they're from Ireland. They didn't go to school past the 8th grade. They come from poor families, rural families, farming families where the only option, the only jobs available at the time were on the farm, and they come from very big families and only one person in the family is going to get the farm. So their story is really typical. All of their neighbors had exactly the same story, which is that one kid's going to get the farm and everybody else either marries someone who got his farm or goes to the United States. So that was their story, and I think that they would express gratitude to the United States for letting them come, for having jobs that they could do. There were, when they arrived in the United States, plenty of jobs for unskilled workers, which is what they both were. And it's pretty incredible. I think they would say it's pretty incredible that with 8th grade educations they came, they could find jobs to own a house, to put 2 kids through private college. And they don't think about this part, but I think about this part. I got to come here, and I got to go to college, and I feel that I have unlimited opportunities. Anything I want to do, I feel I can do. My parents definitely did not feel that way. They don't feel that way now. And to me, that's what America has given generations of people, is unlimited options when in their home country they felt very limited.
Mm-hmm. I guess maybe more specifically, like, what was your American dream maybe growing up, or like how's your perception of the American dream maybe changed as you've grown up?
Well, my perception of the American dream maybe has changed because my parents would argue that everybody, if they could do it, everybody could do it. Mm-hmm. And I know that's not true. And if I said that to my parents, they just wouldn't understand. They wouldn't really argue. They'd be confused. They wouldn't be angry. They wouldn't understand why, and they would point to their own experience as obviously anyone can do it because we had nothing, and this country allowed us to make a very different life. So I guess my understanding has changed because I've now met families where it's not true. Does that answer your question?
Mm-hmm. It does, thank you. How has the American dream played a role in your life?
Well, just simply that. I'm just incredibly grateful for the hope, I think, that the United States gave to my parents. And then, as I said, I know I live a totally different life than my parents, not in terms of money, because that's definitely not true. I actually live in a smaller house than my parents live in. Everything is when I know I know what my parents paid for their house. I know what they paid for college. The costs of all of those things for my husband and me are much greater than the time lapse would imply, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't actually feel like my opportunities are more limitless than my parents are in terms of money and stuff, but in terms of who I can speak to, who I can feel equal to, in all of those ways, I feel completely empowered, and I know my parents don't. So as a perfect example, I went here for high school. I started here in 7th grade. My mom liked it here and would come to every Parents' Day and do all that kind of stuff. My dad came to one parent dinner in the fall of my 7th grade year, and he came home and he said, "Caroline, I'm never going back to that school, ever. Just letting you know, never going." And that was simply because he felt lesser than and felt intimidated by the other parents that he met. I will never I won't go anywhere ever and feel intimidated and feel like I don't have a right to be there. And I'm super grateful for that, and I think that's, I see that as something special that happens in the United States.
I'm sorry. I guess kind of like transitioning, what do you think it means to be American?
So, I mean, it means nothing, actually. It is literally what I think it means. I think it means nothing. This is a stupid story, but I'll tell it anyway because it might get somewhere. I live in Needham, and all the towns in Massachusetts have this thing called town meeting. It's actually very cool if you, when you're grown up, if you are living in a town that governs itself this way. It's really pretty amazing. Citizens in the town run to be a town meeting member. There are bazillions of them, so it's not a hard thing to get. You go and you listen to the justification for the spending of every tax dollar in the town, down to the kinds of light bulbs they're gonna put in the street lamps, and you vote yes or no. It's incredibly powerful, right? So you can have full understanding of how your town is being run, and you can have voice in doing that, right? So fine, that was a very cool experience. I would recommend it highly. We open town meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance and sometimes the singing of the national anthem. And to me, that is the weirdest thing. The Pledge of Allegiance contains the word God. There are people in this audience they're here to vote, who don't believe in the Christian God. What kind of statement does that make that we all have to stand up and say that? One can have all sorts of feelings about the national anthem and what it stands for. And the singing of that and the saying the Pledge of Allegiance seems to me to have nothing to do with whether or not I can pass an informed vote on whether or not we should buy this particular kind of light bulb for the street lamps. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's weird. And yet, I assume the reason why we do that is because someone thinks that being in this room is very American. And I would agree, because it is very American in the sense that I, who just am a resident in the town, have as much right to make decisions about the town as someone who lives, I don't know, who might consider himself more important than me in the town, right? That's very American. Fine, I agree with that. But why a certain song, I don't know, why was it so important to those are rituals that I associate with national interests, not with local interests. And why is it so important that we all first declare our alignment to that national interest when we're here for the most very basic and very local reasons? Am I making any sense? So I get really uncomfortable with any kind of corralling of the masses under a certain creed. That bothers me a lot. And it goes with this question of what does it mean to be American? I think it means nothing. I think I care about, I would like to have streetlights that work. I understand that it has to be a collective action, because I'm not personally gonna go out and put the light bulb in the streetlight outside my house. So we have to act together. So I understand community and the importance of it, but I don't understand the reason why I lose that sense of community when it goes beyond that really local place. Am I making any sense? All right, so that's one whole answer to the question. And then the other answer to the question is, well, I guess what it means to be American is to have been here first. And I don't know all your backgrounds, but no one sitting in that town meeting hall was here first, right? There isn't a single Native American member of the meetup. That's probably not true. But you know what I mean, right? And so if I'm now asked to decide who gets to call himself an American, I personally don't feel that I have any legitimacy in making a decision because my parents weren't born here. And I would look at the person who does feel that he has legitimacy to make that decision and start asking where his parents were born, or his grandparents, or his great-parents. I'm pretty sure they weren't born here. So the whole question becomes silly. It becomes so silly in that in that really logistical sense, and then it's also silly in this other sense I'm trying to describe, where I get that we all need to work together, and I don't know why defining nationhood, that actually seems to get in the way more than help to me.
Who do you consider American?
It's this, I guess anyone, I don't know, I guess anyone who wants to be here. I do believe, I'm willing to believe, because I don't know enough about it, but I'm willing to believe that countries probably need to control entering the country. I do believe that I'm willing to believe that resources are at some point not limitless, and everybody can find life getting unbearable when there's not enough to go around. I'm willing to believe that could happen. I don't see any evidence that that's currently happening, and yet I hear lots of people saying that that's a problem that we have, that huge waves of immigration are making life worse for everybody. I don't see evidence of that, and I'm not well informed enough to really question those arguments, but I certainly hear experts make the counter arguments to that, and I haven't dug into what they say, but my own, I don't think we're at the point yet of needing to close the doors. I know we're not at the point of closing the doors, because even those who argue that we need to control immigration are still willing to entertain all kinds of applications for citizenship. So they don't think that we're totally full. They just think they have visions of who they would like to let into the country. And I know enough about immigration, really mostly from my own parents. My parents, and then my generation of cousins. I have bazillions of cousins in Ireland, and there's been lots of movement back and forth. So I know from both my parents' experience and from their experience that the rules about Irish immigration, that's the world I know best, is ever-changing, pretty whimsical, seems connected not to some abstract principle, but to who's making laws and who is able to lobby lawmakers for what deals. I don't know if that's an answer to your question really, but I guess I don't know the answer to the question. It's a weird question to me.
Has your role as a teacher and educator, has that in any way kind of shaped your perception of America, your perception of the American dream?
So I am a teacher because of this experience that my parents experienced and then my own. As I've already said, for me, I know that my having gone to school here changed my possibilities. Right? I have possibilities that my parents don't have, and that's because of here. So I definitely became a teacher because I thought if I could give somebody else that same chance, it's a gift, and it's a gift that was given to me. I'd like to give it to somebody else. However, I started teaching in urban schools. That's the most extreme example of students who need the most support and need the most doors open for them. And that, if you haven't spent any time in urban schools, I would, before you become a real voter, before you ever cast a vote that has anything to do with education, you should know something about our urban schools. This school is a disaster, and anyone who graduates from this school, and only half of the kids do graduate, anyone who graduates despite the school, not because of the school. It's dangerous. It's literally dangerous, and so then it is also scary. And I can't possibly imagine being those students and coming to my English class. I can't even imagine getting into my English class, but then I certainly can't imagine coming to my English class and reading Macbeth when they're worried about what's going to happen when they leave the room and go to the next place. That has totally changed my view on. So this is why I would say to my parents, not everybody can do what you did. And my parents would look confused because that's not their experience. But watching those kids, there were no possibilities being created for them in that school. If they made a life for themselves after the school, they did it. They did it again, despite what the school was doing to them. There was really nothing but danger in that school. There were no possibilities for them at all. So that's changed it all for me.
Do you consider yourself a patriot?
So again, I don't know what that means. So I think no. I think my responsibility, I feel a responsibility to allow everyone, and that means everyone in the whole world, the same right, to give everybody the same rights that I have. So that means I don't define that based on country, right? Like, I don't think Americans should have certain rights, and I will fight for that. I think everybody should have certain rights, and I should fight for that. I guess I get that other people define themselves by nationhood, and wars start as a result, and so if your country is being attacked, we need a communal effort to repel the attack. Like, I get that, right? That you can't rely on individuals to fend off attacks, and so we probably have to act together. But the wars I know anything about seem so complicated to me and aren't really about, when was the last time? Well, I guess 9/11 was the last time we were actually attacked, but I think I think the forces that, the events that led to that attack are complicated, and I'm not sure joining up and declaring myself defending America is the right way to respond anyway. I guess when I hear patriot, I assume that means that I would fight to defend the country, and that gets confusing to me. I would fight to defend, well, I probably would really not want to fight to defend, but let's pretend that if I had to, I would fight to defend the right of another person because that person's a human, not because that person's an American.
Are you proud to be American?
Very, and so grateful. The funny thing is that Ireland, which is where my parents are from, has had an enormous change of fortune from their days. So when they were 18 and 19 and they're sitting in Ireland and they looked at their futures, they did look bleak, and so coming to the United States was a rational choice. Not all their siblings made that choice, and some stayed in Ireland, and I have a bazillion cousins as a result who live in Ireland. And their lives actually are as luxurious and easy as mine is, right? They also feel unlimited in their possibilities in the same way that I do now. So it turns out the whole coming to America to create that wasn't necessary. But my parents didn't know that, and this country did give them a hope and a ability to define themselves that they did not have in Ireland. I'm super grateful for that, and again, I'm grateful to them for making the move, but I am grateful to the country for having allowed them to reinvent themselves, and then therefore for me to have possibilities beyond theirs. So yeah.